Welcome back. The big Aadhaar judgment today in the Supreme Court, the constitutional bench headed by the Chief Justice of India is going to deliver its verdict. Before, in fact, I go to the BJP representative Hitesh Jain. Rahul, I want you to come in on this and weigh as far as the concerns of the citizens about making Aadhaar mandatory. Almost 38 government schemes, including linking of your PAN and everything else, has been, in a way, government said that it is mandatory for you to link your Aadhaar to avail those benefits, to file your tax and so on and so forth. The problem also is that even private players like your mobile phone operators or your private bank operators, they in the name of KYC have also asking for mandatory Aadhaar inclusion. For a citizen, how is it infringement on its fundamental right?
Ankit, I think the basic fundamental right violation in 2009, the first PAN Aadhaar card was issued in 2010. We were told it was voluntary. A government cannot con its people.
Yeah.
We were told it is voluntary. Today it is mandatory. Between that, there has been a law for almost 6 odd years. Aadhaar had no legislative ground. It had no legislative backing that it was operating. The government of India was collecting my biometrics, my details, and there was no legal backing. What can happen to it? The Congress has a lot to answer, though it says that it championed the cause. The BJP has a lot to answer. It opposed it at one time.
Yes.
In Parliament, can you imagine, the government has admitted that as many as 210 official websites have been found to be displaying Aadhaar numbers of people.
Exactly.
210 of them. Now, has the Prime Minister Aadhaar number come out? No, we don't know. But the common Aadhaar number has been out. It is also very important here that the government says, yes, we do agree that subsidies are being targeted better. It has helped a lot of investigating agencies, if there is an Aadhaar linkage, telephone linkage, bank account, to maybe catch hold of criminals. But the fact remains that when Hitesh was saying that your passport is at a different level, X is at a different, you give data there. This is a one-point access for the government and the system, or anybody who hacks into the system.
Yes.
Because my phone, my EPF, my bank account, my wife's name, my every detail is there.
Yes.
That is why it is dangerous. It is good, but it has got its negative side. The question here is, how is the government protecting me? How I have been drawn into this scheme, told that it is mandatory, and now I have what kind of protection? What kind of protection Supreme Court gives today will be critical.
And Hitesh, the problem is what Rahul is saying, and let me just add one more thing to it. What of all these concerns as well, when my government in its argument in the top court says that the citizens don't have absolute right on their own body, I am concerned. You are trying to tell me that something, as you were talking about passport and others, that is voluntary. Now I am worried whether the government has used this as a mechanism of overall state surveillance. How do you address those concerns?
Okay. Also, I would like to remind you some background and the observations of the Supreme Court in the Puttaswamy case. In that case, while delivering the verdict on the right to privacy, the Supreme Court also endorsed the fact that the digital platform, insofar as digital platform is concerned, it is a vital tool of good governance, and it did not endorse right to privacy as a right to loot public money. That is the one important point I want to place. Now, second point about this whole, people are talking about exclusion, people are not getting the rationing and all. Now, we are all aware about the bogus ration cards and the cases across the countries where in thousands and lakhs as to how people were procuring bogus ration cards, and because of procuring bogus ration card, the genuine beneficiaries were denied for the ration base. So nobody addressed that issue. The malnutrition was happening then. People were denied food then. When the UPA itself came about the right to food and all, when they bought such rights, or when they spoke about this delivery, it was an admitted fact that people were not getting the food and all. But nobody wants to address that issues. So when an attempt has been made to ensure a foolproof state system, to ensure that the targeted subsidies reach the intended section of the beneficiary, people are just coming up with the argument purely based on the apprehension. as far as apprehensions is concerned, the argument is well noted. But nobody has been able to accept placing the apprehension as to how the system is going to be misused. There has not been a single illustration that has been placed.
No, but
people are only talking
but the government have also failed. The government has also failed.
This cannot be a solution. Also, one point I want to make. 30 seconds.
Yes,
30 seconds. I want to make one very important point. So, as Rahul rightly mentioned, in 2006, 2009, the Aadhaar and everything came. It was operated for 5 years during the Congress regime. And you know the arguments that were advanced by Kapil Sibal in the Supreme Court. Oh, in India there is no electricity. Oh, in India there is no Wi-Fi. How will we reach? So that means for 70 years, you cannot even ensure that the electricity reach and everything. So what, we are going to wait forever that there will be no infrastructure and people will be deprived forever because of the incompetency and the failures of the past
But
government.
that doesn't also mean that the government holds a gun to my head and say, give me your data, or you will not, I will not give you the welfare schemes. Just because previous government couldn't do it, they were lax at it, this government will hold a gun onto my head. Let me put that question to KV Dhananjay. When Hitesh makes this argument that before this the problem was that people were not getting... Hitesh, hold on. I gave you ample time. Let's be fair. Let's be fair. You put forward your point. Let's be fair to the other panelists as well. Mr. Dhananjay, the argument that Hitesh was putting out, that this is a scheme which plugs the loopholes as far as the delivery system of the government is concerned. Then how do they justify what is possibly happening in Jharkhand, even in Delhi, where there are refugee children who have not been able to go back to the school because their parents have not been able to produce the Aadhaar card?
Very true. There are, of course, a great deal of concern around Aadhaar, but at the same time, there are also good points for Aadhaar, which is it's given a sense of identity to millions of people. Those millions of people never had any valid document with them to prove their identity earlier, and now it's given them a life of peace. There's no doubt about it. But the problem is, what is also making it very difficult for anybody to accept Aadhaar wholesale is the attitude of the government. The government does not seem to have a reasonable attitude at all. As I was saying earlier, much of its argument is consistent with what dictatorial systems would have. So the government is not willing to look at misuse of the Aadhaar. It is not willing to look at where it is going wrong. It is taking a hardline stand all these days. And of course, what it has in its favor is the fact that it's gone ahead and it's spent tens of thousands of crores. It's got 95% of the adult population already enrolled. So in that sense, they seem to be more confident than anyone else that they have a victory in the Supreme Court, because no government in their right mind would ever invest that kind of money unless and until it was quite sure of the outcome from the court. And that is why we were also pointing out earlier, and there is also much criticism, and I've been one of those that's consistently criticized our Supreme Court for taking too much of time to decide on this issue. If you take a look at how the courts used to decide in the 1960s, 70s, all of monumental judgments were coming out in 5 or 6 months. 5 months used to be the average time that most of our monumental judgments have come out in the 60s and 70s. Why did this case prolong for such a long time, for 6 full years? And that is also making it so very hard for even reasonable people to make a case against Aadhaar. So many of the concerns, so many of the people that are arguing against Aadhaar will seem a bit silly when you look at it being deployed on such a massive scale. And of course, the BJP spokesperson was asking, come on, show us the damage. Obviously, in matters of privacy, damage very often is perceptual. One may not be able to show that one's bank account was in fact hacked into or anything like that. But courts are not going to ask for actual damage in matters of privacy. They are going to ask for the anxiety. Anxiety matters much more than actual damage. And this is a problem. This is a perception that the government does not seem to get at all.
Let me get into Sukan at this point of time. There is this whole argument and the balance and the counterbalance of pro and against Aadhaar, where the government says that it is necessary to plug the loopholes in distribution of essential schemes that the government has, and also, as Rahul was pointing out, in many cases it becomes a tool for the investigating agencies to in fact catch people faster, because there is now a link. But the other aspect of it is, are the activists actually painting a very grim picture when it comes to misuse of Aadhaar? That sort of an argument possibly is coming from the government, that you are trying to weigh in or put much more light on how it can be misused, though there has not been yet any mass scale example or evidence that data has been breached or it has been misused?
Someone has to bring forward what the issues are. Activists are generally concerned with user rights. They're concerned with what happens to the people at large. They're concerned with looking at what would be the end result if you don't look at this from a particular perspective, if you look at the society at large, and if you believe that people should come first. Then from that perspective, yes, activists have to highlight what the issues are.
Anand, if I can come to you for a very quick comment, just take our viewers through this whole proceedings as far as Aadhaar case is concerned, because as Dhananjay was pointing out, it has taken quite a bit of significant time for it to reach judgment state today.
Well, absolutely. We've seen how in 2017, when the government said that the right to privacy is not a fundamental right and it's not explicit in the Constitution, the government has already lost out on that argument. The Supreme Court has made it clear that the right to privacy is very much a fundamental right. So the question before the Supreme Court today is whether the various schemes and whether the various steps which have been taken by the government to include them into the ambit of Aadhaar do infringe on the right to privacy or not. So we've seen how Aadhaar started as a as a way of inclusion into the welfare schemes, and it was not mandatory at all. But now we see that government has slowly moved towards making it mandatory, be it your PAN card, be it your bank account, or be it even your mobile phone. So we've seen all that. Now the question before the five-bench Supreme Court today is that whether these steps which have been taken over the years since 2009, when Aadhaar was not mandatory at all, do they infringe upon the right to privacy of the common citizens?
All right, I'll have to leave it there. I have to take a very quick break at this point of time. But when we come back, and because this is also be our focus, in fact, between 10 and 11 as well, there is this argument that is floated around that Aadhaar is like the social security number that is given in the United States. There are fundamental differences when what happens in the United States with the social security number and Aadhaar. It is not the identity per citizen as the social security number in the United States, of course, provides. And then...
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.